Welcome to Crossroad Connection. We're speaking out for those left unheard. My name is David Schuringa. I want to welcome you to the program and to Crossroad Bible Institute. I'm its president, and we're actually in our 30th year. One thing that has been very much on the agenda of Crossroad is the whole matter of restorative justice. And we're finding that restorative justice is something that needs to hopefully start before people get involved with the law. And also it's something that we have seen of interest going on even in the schools at that level. And so I have in the studio with me today Teresa Weatherall Neal, who is the superintendent of the schools of the Grand Rapids Public Schools.
That's correct.
And you've been doing that for like 35 years and have all kinds of degrees and have been sort of a leader in these alternative programs to make the schools a better place and so forth. We hear about and I'm not talking just about Grand Rapids at all, but I mean, you're obviously going to be very knowledgeable of the public school system throughout the country. But we hear of this phrase of schools being pipelines to prison. Could you talk about that? What does that mean?
In education, public schools, and even private schools, children come with some problems. And so we see it in their homes, we see it in the schools, and our goal in education really is to focus on academic achievement, but for so many of our children, we need to give them other skills. And so deconstructing the whole school to prison pipeline, we as educators, we need to look at what are some of the indicators. And it's very clear, right? And so we know suspension and struggling with reading and low grade point average, there's things that we know. So how do we come together and give them tools, wrap our arms around them early, as you said, and not wait until there's an issue? We all need to come together to really deconstruct that whole prison to school to prison pipeline.
How does it happen? Just give a scenario of a pipeline to prison situation. You have a student,
That's a great question.
maybe who is from a single parent home. Maybe the home is in chaos, and so there's no bedtime, there's no one helping with the homework and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's not typical, correct?
It is not, but that's more of the easier situations to really point out. There are children with two parents, a great income, great support, who also may struggle. And so we look for indicators such as low reading scores, the inability to really get along with their peers.
Social skills.
We look at their attendance patterns, their grades. Those are the children that we need to come to an agreement that we're going to wrap our arms around them early, right? It's not just the kids that are struggling with a single mom or low income. These are skills that we need to equip children with, regardless of their socioeconomic status.
And that's a good point, because it strikes me that you can have an intact family that's wealthy even, but the problem is that they're indifferent to their kids, or they're alcoholics, or they're workaholics. And so those kids get lost in the shuffle and can experience the same sort of difficulties. What happened in the schools that all of a sudden kids are getting records and police are being called? That wasn't always the case.
It wasn't always the case, but I think as we bring community members into the schools, which is extremely important, we began to see some of the ills that happen in society. Right? There is nothing really magic about school. Children bring the same baggage to school that they left their homes with. And so part of the goal is to bring people in to reduce those barriers. I have for many years worked to create programs to get at some of the ills that children are struggling with.
Are these sort of the Wheel of Support, Youth Advocate Program, Family Support Specialist Program?
Absolutely. Because although our goal is academic achievement, it is very difficult to teach children when they have baggage with them.
So you're talking about a more holistic approach.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
You know, we don't parcel out children when they come to school.
Just take their brain and put it there.
We can't do that. And so if they had a difficult morning, a difficult evening, they bring those worries to school with them, just like we do as employees. And so part of the goal is to say, you know what, are you having a bad day, and how can I help you? And it takes just one person to say, good morning, you know, you're special, I'm glad you're here today. You can change the outlook of someone's day. And so with the Wheel of Support, I have created a program that allows one caring adult for every 10 to 15 students. And it can be a counselor, a teacher, a security officer.
This is just organized right on campus.
Absolutely. We take those children that are in the lowest quartile, that are struggling the most. So when I talk about deconstructing the school to prison pipeline, these are some of the students that would have some of the factors.
So they're like in a special small group.
They become a family, and that's what I call them. You know what?
Yeah.
Am I my brother's keeper, right? These are your brothers and sisters. And so walking down the hall.
And are the kids aware of it, that they're in this group?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They are. They don't know why they were picked. They don't know how they were picked. Right? We talk about, you are so special to me, and I want you to allow me to work with you. And so children embrace it, staff members embrace it, and, you know, we just check in. How's it going? How's it going? I'm glad to see you today, right? Instead of always harping on these kids, you're late, something is going, you know what? How about just a good morning? I'm happy to see you.
You're talking about positive reinforcement.
It has to be. We use what's called positive behavior intervention support in Grand Rapids throughout the entire district. So.
Tell me about what we hear of zero tolerance policies in schools, and what is that, and has it done any good?
You know, when you look at the research for zero tolerance, it has not really been effective. We tried to correct a problem, and I think we went too far. I do believe that as the superintendent of schools and the board, we should have some leeway to make decisions about what is best for children. You know, I understand that you have to protect children. I understand that that's creating a safe environment is important. But the research has not been clear that automatically putting children out is a good thing. When you put a child out for 180 days,
what happens to that kid?
What happens?
They're lost, yeah.
And look how long it takes for that child to catch up. We also know what the research is. The more times a child fails, you retain them, the less likely they are to graduate, the more likely they are to go to prison, right? So we have all of this research, and yet we continue down the same path. And so what we are doing in Grand Rapids Public Schools is piloting restorative justice practice.
That's where we want to go.
Because we do believe that you have to give children, as well as their parents and community members, the skill sets to hold conversations.
Just before we leave the zero tolerance thing, it strikes me that there is a connection between the zero tolerance policies in schools and mandatory sentencing in our courts. And what really bugs me about mandatory sentencing is that it ties the hands of judges to exercise justice in that particular situation. Right. And I mean by justice, not payback, but restoring shalom.
Absolutely.
And it strikes me, that's the same thing you're facing with a zero tolerance policy. You don't have the freedom or the ability to bring shalom in that situation. Does that connection?
Absolutely. And so I think that, again, as a superintendent, as a board, we need to be able to, you talk about shalom, how do we bring peace? How do we bring peace? And it is not by putting children out for 180 days, and then we don't have programs in the community, and so these children are walking the streets. What happens to them? And so we need to come together as a community to say, this is what we believe about children. Now, you may not be able to attend a regular school to get educated. But how do we come together? Maybe it's an ISD, maybe it's all 20 of us districts together, maybe it's a community partner. But how do we come together and have certified teachers in order to continue the education? Because we know positively what the outcome will be if we don't.
After the break, I want to talk more then about restorative justice, and I want to start off by talking with you about your opinion and perspective on restorative versus retributive justice in the schools. We'll be right back after this.
Are you in prison? Do you know someone who is? Through CBI Bible studies and encouragement from CBI instructors, more than 40,000 people behind bars are learning the truth about salvation through Christ and are developing deeper relationships with God. For an enrollment form, please visit us online at cbi.fm.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. My name is David Schuringa, and I have Teresa Weatherall Neal, who's the superintendent of Grand Rapids Public School System. And it's just a delight to have you on the program, Teresa.
Thank you.
May I call you Teresa?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. But we've been talking about the situation in the schools and how to best work with students and who are troubled and so forth. We talked about zero tolerance policies that have failed. And so now you have been experimenting with restorative justice ways to resolve conflict or situations. Let's hear more. Well, first of all, what's the difference to you between restorative measures and punishment and retributive measures and punishment?
You know, what we are trying to do with restorative justice, it really is teaching children and their parents how to make others whole. It is how do we repair and make you whole if, in fact, I've done something to offend you. And these are new skills.
Excuse me, but that's a different question than how do I pay you back?
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
And that's the default.
That's right.
Okay, keep going.
And we can't expect children to understand that. This is a learned skill. And so what we don't want to do is teach children to pay back. We know that's wrong. We know that is wrong.
That's our whole culture.
You know what? And so what we're saying is, even if you have offended someone, then you go to that person, and we're going to give you the skills to be able to have that conversation. And the Grand Rapids Public Schools, I've sent 5 certified behavior specialists to be trained in restorative practices.
Really?
Absolutely. And so I have 5 trained individuals.
You call them in when there's a crisis.
They're actually in the schools. They are teaching teachers and social workers and students and parents about restorative practice. We also have people on the ground that are trained in addition to these 5 members. They are positive behavior intervention support specialists. They are all either master's or PhD employees, been with the district for many years. They are now certified trainers in the district. So.
Well, we got to talk about some concrete ways in which how this works. But it reminds me of a time when my oldest son Greg, who is now a pastor of a large church in Chicago and just one of the greatest kids that I could ever have, but when he was about 4th grade, I guess, I received a telephone call, my wife and I, that he had thrown rocks at this woman's house. And so I confronted him with it, and I said, no, I didn't do it,
Yeah.
And I says, well, then I says, we need to talk to this woman. And so we're walking up to the house, and he says, Dad, wait a minute. He says, I may have tossed a couple pebbles.
I love it.
But then the woman came to the door, and amends were made, and apologized. Now today, they're liable to call the cops.
That's right.
And give a kid a record. This is a little bit of what I'm talking about.
That's right. That's not the answer.
You're able to say, sort of how I've been hurt, how I harmed it,
Yeah.
How can we restore this relationship? Is this too simplistic, or is this what it's about?
It really isn't. You know what? People make this much more difficult, I think, than it really is. There are times when it is appropriate to call police officers.
Okay.
And so there are situations where restorative practice is not the best way to handle something.
And that would be what? Kid brings a gun to school or something?
Oh,
or?
absolutely. It could be a gun. It could be a fire, a weapon. It could be something egregious against a staff member. We have to maintain a safe and orderly environment. And when you have 18,000 people, right, you have to maintain order, or learning is not going to happen. But at the same time, part of this is common sense. I don't think that for a kindergartner, a first grader, to be expelled for 180 days, and my board members agreed with me. And so we have created a policy in the Grand Rapids Public Schools that in order for a child 7 and under, the age of 7 and under, to be expelled, that child must come before the superintendent. Well, I'm sort of giving it away because I just don't believe in it.
So you can intervene
Absolutely.
and find alternative things. Can you give me an example of something that happens that in the past would have resulted in expulsion, police coming, retributive measures, but now today you can talk it through and bring restoration. Do you have an example?
I do. And so it could be a fight.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Kids fight.
Yep.
And so rather than blow that up and say that's an assault.
There
because
we go
it's
again.
a language. It's language as well.
Yeah.
That we have to attach to this behavior. And so we may have called it a fight.
Right.
But someone else will say that's an assault. Now all of a sudden, the police can get involved.
All of a sudden it's criminal.
It is. And it's a public act.
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so because if there is an assault.
And then it becomes a crime against the state.
Absolutely.
And then it's lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful of how we even hold conversations about something, right? And let's say you have 2 students that are fighting and maybe a couple people jump in. Now instead of that being just a fight, now it's a riot, right? Again, it's the language that we attribute to these behaviors.
This is
right?
amazing.
And so we have to be careful. We as adults, we have to be careful. And so what I've done is I tried to remove, it didn't work, but I tried to remove the catch-all category, disruptive behavior, right? Because we would have hundreds of students. You can't really define what it is, but you were disruptive. Well, you know what, let's just remove that category. And so you no longer have that as an option. Well, what people then tend to do is say, okay, then I'll pick another category.
Besides disruptive behavior.
Right.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, that behavior becomes more egregious than what it would have been under disruptive behavior. So I didn't quite fix it. I tried to fix it, and then I may have created a bigger problem. So I still need to figure out, one, how to do it. But I think it comes, I think part of the answer is to bring staff members in and have a conversation. Because it's difficult to be in a classroom teaching when you have children that are being disruptive. And so we have to give the teachers a voice, and at the same time, we have to protect children. And so where's the balance?
That is amazing. And the teachers, too, need a lot of prep for this, don't they? And a lot of instruction.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
Sometimes in a setting where there is so much disruptive behavior, the teacher's just surviving, right? And killing time to get through the day sometimes because they're so frustrated. How do you deal with that?
I think that first of all, teachers are human beings.
Yeah.
Right. And if you had 30 kids, and you have a few kids that are clown. Think about your own home. If you had 30 children the same age, right? And so I do want to just kind of give a shout out to teachers because it's a very difficult job to do. And there are very few teachers went into this profession to say, you know what, I'm just going to just slide by. That really is not their intent. They're there to teach the curriculum and want to do the best. But we have to work with parents and students in order for teachers to do the job. The other piece to this is the children that are in the classroom behaving, they deserve an education.
Right.
And so you have to strike that balance.
Yep.
Right. And it comes from relationships and holding conversations and then showing people the data. People may not even be aware that they keep putting the same kid out every other week. Every time little Johnny comes back, he does something, you know what, and then all of a sudden you have a spotlight on you. So, Johnny, you're out.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to help people see that, this may not be the best thing, this revolving door that we're creating.
Well, this is very, very encouraging and very enjoyable to talk to you about it. And we're going to take a break right now. But after the break, I just want to talk heart to heart with you. Where does restorative justice come from?
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this.
Correcting Bible study lessons is crucial to helping inmates. To partner with CBI in this safe and secure role, please visit us at cbi.fm on the web.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. I'm talking with Teresa Neal, who is the superintendent of Grand Rapids Public School. And we've been talking about restorative justice and better ways to deal with problems that rise in the schools, better ways to deal with and to label even things that happen so that it doesn't end up going down the wrong road of the pipeline to prisons. Now, here we are talking about restorative justice over against vengeance and payback and retributive justice and how that can work itself out in the lives of these children. We haven't mentioned the word God because we're not supposed to do that in public schools, right? But this is all God stuff to me.
That's right. That's right. You know what?
May I say that to you?
You know what? You can. You can. I'm a Christian. I attend Messiah Missionary Baptist Church, and my pastor, Dr. Reverend Clifton Rhodes, preaches to us about helping children and our role in society. And even when you think of restorative practices, right, it really is about treating people as you would want them to treat you.
Golden rule.
Just, you know what, just some common sense. We've all made mistakes. And our children, not only have they made mistakes, but they will continue, and we will as well. And I think that it is looking at that person as a human being, not casting them aside, and just saying, you know what, what's right? What is right? And try not to just stay in the moment, which is very difficult to do. But how do we look beyond the situation right now and think of what's best, not only for the child, but for this community? These children will grow up, and they will come back to this community.
No, absolutely. Well, how I see it as a Christian, and I don't think it's, I think it's a multi-faith sort of sensibility, you know. But, we look in the Hebrew Scriptures, and there's lots of payback there. And it shows us what happens with a life of payback and vengeance. And therefore, Jesus comes, from my perspective, he pays the price.
That's right.
Now there's no more payback because he paid it all.
That's right.
And so now we can deal with each other in restorative ways, no more payback. Is that a good theological representation from your perspective?
I think it is. And I think it's just about being decent human beings, right? And that is showing love. And for whether it's to the children or teachers or principals, superintendents, just community members, we just need to show love to each other and help someone. Just help them get to the next step. I talk about reach one, teach one quite a bit. And with restorative practices, this is an opportunity for us to teach children to do something other than hold a vengeance. I'm going to get you back, to keep something going on and on. You know what? It's too much baggage to even put on children.
Right.
That they have to carry around this hate and this idea of payback.
Right. And then of course they carry it with them into adulthood and so forth. But and it seems to me, this is so pervasive in the human spirit, and everyone can see that something's wrong with the payback. We don't have to shove religion down anybody's throats, do we?
No.
It's so obvious.
No, right.
Everybody knows something's dead wrong.
That's right.
That's
right.
and there's better ways to get along. So it's not about proselytizing.
No.
It's not about making you believe like I believe. It's about people getting along as they're supposed to get along, huh?
That's all.
Well, this has just been a marvelous time. How can people get involved?
That's a great question. So with our program in restorative practices, we have what's called Parent University, and that is co-funded by Doug and Maria DeVos Foundation, as well as the Grand Rapids Public Schools and our Title I dollars. And so we teach parents. We offer classes around the community for anyone. It doesn't have to be a Grand Rapids Public School parent, but we offer classes 6 days a week. And we hold classes around restorative practices and what does that look like and how do you do the circles and how do you make someone whole, because we want the community to embrace this as well.
Is this so that in the homes and in the neighborhoods these practices are being used, not just in the schools?
That's right. You know, children are in school only 23% of the day. And so after that, they belong to the community.
Right.
I'm just blessed to serve as their leader and their superintendent, the best job in the world, Grand Rapids Public School superintendent. But unfortunately, they leave me and they go to you. And so it doesn't do the school system and children, my children, any good if we hold these skill sets only during 8 to 3 during the school hours.
That's just
We've
marvelous.
got to do it with the community.
That's just marvelous.
Right.
And so how would a parent or find out about these classes?
Go to grandrapidspublicschools.org. We have our registration application is online. You can stop in at our Franklin campus, 1331. You can go to any Grand Rapids public school and register for classes. And they're held in churches and in schools, community centers. They're around the entire community.
Wow.
6 days a week. So
how many people have been involved?
We have had in our classes so far about 1,300 community members. I even took a class. Class. And so we have classes around parenting, financial stability. It could be college courses, health and wellness, some just fun classes, but just blessed to have community partners who believe in this school system and believe in the community and these children. Because we know we need an educated community, and an educated community is not one that believes in payback.
Well, I think we have settled that. We see it all the time. In the attitude and so forth, and so we see ourselves is not only do we want to help people in prison. We have like 45,000 students right now, but also we got to change our system in society. We got to change our society in terms of their,
That's right.
Look at the blockbuster movies. They're all payback movies, aren't they?
Absolutely.
People,
and they glorify it.
They glorify it, yes, and cheer the payback. And we got to have the end of payback.
That's right.
We gotta find restoration and shalom.
Shalom.
Hey,
That's right.
Teresa, thank you. This has been a treat. I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Absolutely.
You're making a terrific difference in our city.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate you being on the program.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. And we hope that you enjoyed the program and hope that we'll see you again right here next week.